I don't think
I
that the words you're using then have much meaning. If
They have
you
all
can,
the meaning in the
you
world, and
said
there's
it.
so much meaning that we can't wrap our tiny brains around them.
No, I mean, you. How
I
can you
think
say it's true that you violated the command?
you
But
can be subjectively true.
thinking about our last time,
Hmm.
I think I may have found where the disconnect is.
Okay,
So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions first.
I'm ready.
All right. So we established that uh, I have a desk, and if I look at the desk and I say, that's a desk,
Hmm.
that's an objectively true statement. My desk is there.
Okay, I don't. Okay, that's a desk. Where I even think the word desk is a metaphysical description.
Okay. Well,
Like,
we're using language to describe things, so we're going to have to just accept that for now.
yeah,
All
language
right.
and descriptions are part of the metaphysical, but I'm uh, on board with your desk. Hey, this is a desk. Great.
Okay. Now, um, can if-then statements be objectively true?
If then,
Yeah, so
uh,
if I move my desk 2 feet to the left, then my desk will be 2 feet to the left of where it currently is.
I'd say that's a correct statement, a true statement, and there are two subjective things in that statement that you made: desk and feet. Because what if you moved it 2 meters over instead
And
of 2 feet?
it wouldn't be objectively true that I moved it 2 feet. It would be true that I moved it two
Well,
meters.
what if I use inches and you use centimeters? There's
Well,
a
we
conversion there,
generally
isn't there?
agree
So that
upon
is a subjective
language so that we
thing.
that's
You've
silly.
you've mentioned
Uh,
two subjective things in that statement. I moved my desk 2 feet to the left. There are two subjective things in that sentence. One, first desk. Second, feet.
we both understand the meaning behind desk and the meaning behind feet.
We
So,
do because we were brought up in the same uh, tradition of language and measurements. So yes, I
that's fine. We
comprehend what you're
we as
telling me.
we as we as human beings understand what it means to use language and communicate meaning.
Okay.
Um, so if I move my desk 2 feet to the left, then it is true that my desk will be 2 feet to the left of where it currently is.
I would agree that that's true.
Okay. Can we make objectively true statements about probability?
Objectively true statements about probability.
Yeah,
Probability is
so
a
like let's
measurement.
say if you get the COVID vaccine,
Hmm.
you are 30% less likely to contract COVID.
I would say that's a uh, true statement if it's based on research facts and statistics. Sure.
Sure. I'm just giving that as an example,
Sure.
right? Um, so we can make true if-then statements,
Sure.
and we can make true statements about probabilities.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. We can make true statements.
If a person abuses a dog,
Okay.
that dog is going to have a release of cortisol in its brain.
Sure.
That's going to change some of that dog's brain structure.
I
And
can
animals,
recognize
being
that. Sure.
pattern recognizing entities, that dog may end up, or very likely, is going to have those changes in the brain reflect a distrust of humans.
Sure.
And
That
that
all
distrust
makes
of
sense.
humans is going to manifest in disfavorable behaviors such as timidness or even aggression towards humans.
I agree.
Okay,
That is a likely outcome.
so is it then a true statement that if you abuse a dog, then that dog will start to exhibit timid or aggressive behavior towards humans? Or very likely will?
Yes, I would say that's a true statement.
Okay, so even though that's born of the distrust of humans, which is part of the dog's subjective experience,
Hmm.
it is still a true statement
Hmm.
that one action will result in another behavior.
Sure.
Okay,
That's all
so
subjectivity to me.
how is this all subjectivity?
Because it's all product of the mind. The kicking of the dog would be an objective thing. The dog is an objective thing. The person is an objective thing. But the thought process, the trust, the unhappiness that happens with the dog, the fear. Where does the fear exist? The dog is afraid of humans. Where does that fear exist? Within the dog's mind. Where does that trust exist? Within the dog's mind. Where does that aggression? Where is that aggression born? Within the dog's mind.
Well, it doesn't matter
How does that not
because
matter? That
it's still going to very likely result in a particular set of behaviors from that dog in the end, right?
Yes, the behavior that the dog does, the snapping at strangers, the barking, and the biting of other people, those are objective. But the
Uh-huh. And
fear,
they
the
are,
trust, and the mistrust is subjective.
well, even then,
We
it may be
weave,
subjective, but we also know that that behavior is the result of objective things that are happening
yes,
in in the brain.
yes, an
So,
an objective thing happened. Dog got kicked. A subjective thing happened. He now distrusts humans, and then an objective thing happens after that, where he bites the next person that he sees.
well, even
We
that
can cross back
second
and
part
forth.
is
This,
maybe not true. The because it's the objective release of the cortisol in the dog's brain and the shaping of neural feedback systems
mhm. Those are objective
in
things.
the
I would
dog's
agree.
brain.
Those are objective things.
If those are objective things, then necessarily the dog's response or the dog's subjective experience is the product of objective realities that happen within the dog.
An objective thing happened, and it caused an objective thing to happen within the brain. And the brain, then we're going to call that distrust.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Distrust is the subjective thing. The cortisol is an objective thing. The brain pathways, objective thing. Distrust is the name, the definition we have given to that brain pathway and that cortisol release. And the objective biting of the next person is caused by subjective distrust. That subjective distrust is caused by an objective cortisol and brain pathway.
What I'm trying to get at
Hmm.
is you have enough within this path that we have. The If you abuse a dog, it's going to start to distrust humans, and having distrusted humans, it is going to behave in disfavorable ways.
Sure.
Okay, humans are pretty much the same. The
I
difference
would
that we have,
I would agree. We're a more complicated brain, but similar. Yes.
yes, well, the big difference that we have is that we're capable of communication.
Hmm.
So something, so every dog has to learn that distrust of humans, um, or rather, every abused dog has learned that distrust of humans uh, from the physical act of having been abused.
Okay. I would agree. There's no complicated dog literature
Right.
proclaiming that people should or should not be trusted.
So basically, what humans have to our advantage is that in addition to being capable of recognizing patterns and whatnot, we also have our communication.
Hmm.
So I don't have to personally witness or personally experience a murder, for example, or
Hmm.
personally experience somebody attacking me out of the blue,
Hmm.
for somebody else to explain something that happened to me.
On board. So yeah, you hear about a terrible thing that happens, and that makes you fearful of the thing that might happen to you. I have never been to the Grand Canyon, yet I know that it exists because of reports that I trust.
Right. Now, it is generally disfavorable to perform actions that are going to do the same thing to humans as what happens in a dog, which is to um, cause harm in some way, to steal, to kill, to attack unprovoked. And doing so has the potential not just to increase these distrust levels in the individual for whom it affects, but because we're capable of communication, this is going to have an incremental effect on the whole of our society.
I could agree with that.
Okay.
If there is uh, reports of rampant crime, maybe in San Francisco, you would then think that it's a terrible place.
Right. So, that being the case,
Hmm.
we can identify which behaviors are capable of increasing that level of distrust and the associated negative behavior that comes with it, right? If I don't trust my neighbor, if I don't trust somebody else um, with their promise to return the power tool that I
Hmm.
loan them, right? I'm not going to do it. And now that person is disadvantaged, and potentially the whole community is disadvantaged.
Yes, I could agree to that.
Okay,
I think you're describing sociology right now.
well, sure, but I'm also, what I'm saying is that there is enough objectivity in the path of events that's happening here
Hmm.
that once we find the behaviors that cause this distrust,
Hmm.
then what we've come up with is morality or guidelines for our society, right?
Hmm.
That are contrary to those negative behaviors, right?
Sure. You've got a list of rules that are based on uh, bad things that people have done in the past, harmful things that we don't want to continue, or things that cause distrust and bad things within our society. Great. I'm on board. That's a thing that we ought to have.
So these are ought statements,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But they're also if then statements.
Sure. If someone insults me, I then feel bad.
Sure.
There are
So
three
I
subjectives in
will,
that sentence.
what?
There are three subjectives in that sentence that I just made. If someone insults me, so that's subjective, I
I think you're gonna have to
feel
get off the words there.
bad. I will give up the subjective and objective. But I think
Um,
you are building towards objective morality, which I don't think exists.
I think that
If
in
you
the
are
same way that it's objectively true that if you abuse a dog, then the dog will exhibit negative behaviors towards humans.
There are some objects in that sentence. There are some subjects in that sentence. There's some objective things in there, and there are some subjective things in that sentence. We are threading the line in the metaphysical area, which is why uh, that's where they touch.
Did you read the link I sent you?
About, yes, and I read it, and I think it disagrees with you. Once I
You
got to the
think
bottom, I think it
it
disagrees with
disagrees with
you.
me?
Yes. Secular humanism is a thing. I think it's good. I think this is a worthy thing that people should do and ought to apply, but it is not objective. And the thing that I read down here that I thought was disagreeing with you was down in the conclusion. I know I'm skipping all of this stuff, but I read through it. Morality is neither objective or subjective in the way that statements of fact are said to be objective or subjective. Nor is that type of objectivity really our concern. Our
Well,
legitimate
it's
concern
that
is that we
type
don't want people
of.
feeling free to do their own thing, and that's fine. I don't want people
Well,
to
hold on.
feel like
It's
they can break all the laws.
it's that type of objectivity, right?
Hmm.
So maybe we're talking about different types of objectivity then,
And
which
because
perhaps
of,
we are. But I don't
and
think that it's appropriate.
we very
I don't
well
think
could be.
I don't think that your type of objectivity is appropriate for discussion on morals.
Objective morality doesn't exist. That's the point I'm getting to. And the morality does exist. I'm on board with you with one, morality, two, the necessity of morality. I want morality to exist. I want people to have them. I won't accept that they are objective because that leads to people telling you what is real. That leads to people creating an objective morality and then telling you that it is correct, and then they will look you right in the face, say that I am objectively moral, and I cannot be proven wrong. Okay. Let me put it to you this way.
Well, no, we can.
Let let me
There are
let me
plenty of.
suggest make a suggestion to you. I trust people who are seeking the truth, but I doubt anyone that says they found it. Is that a thing that you could comprehend? Or what do you think about that statement? I trust people who are seeking truth, but I doubt anybody who says they found it.
Okay. But does the truth exist?
True things exist, sure. Could it be different from someone else? Sure. Also, facts are a thing that we can agree upon, but they can be undermined, they can be doubted, they can be uh, debated.
Well,
What
yeah,
if?
that's the whole point of like science and whatnot, but
Hmm.
that doesn't make the pursuit. I mean, that debate is all part of the pursuit of what is the truth,
Right,
right?
I would agree with that.
Um, but the truth itself, if somebody believes in a particular truth and it turns out that they are not correct, then
Hmm.
it just turns out that that's not what the truth is.
Sure, you can. We believed certain things were true, and then we were proven wrong, and we no longer believe them. Happens. Was it true back then? Was it
No,
true the first time? Okay,
even
but they felt
even
like it, and if you
even the
lived your
first time,
entire life thinking that it was true, and you built an objective morality off of something that you didn't, that turned out later to not be true after you're dead, did they have objective morality? I don't think they did,
no,
because
I
objective
don't think they did.
morality
But
cannot exist. It just simply can't.
well, if it is possible that the truth is um, is the truth regardless of what people think of it,
I don't like
right?
that definition.
Well,
That would,
it is true that the Earth revolves around the sun,
right, that
and
that
for a long,
fits.
long time,
Uh-huh.
people, the whole of society, thought that the sun revolves around the Earth.
Hmm.
Well, the fact that the entire society thought that didn't make it any more true.
No, so did they
It wasn't
have
true.
objective morality? They didn't.
I think that objective morality, the same way that the truth exists independent of what everyone thinks of it, I think that objective morality also exists
And it's just what
independent
we think
of
of it?
no, independent of what everyone thinks of it. And our goal should be to get as close to it as possible.
And but because you're thinking and using this subjective device to find those objectives, you will always, you will never, you'll never get to it.
Maybe not. I don't
Okay.
necessarily agree with that, but I do think that we can strive to get as close as possible. Um,
And that's why I would trust you. Just like that little idea I had a minute ago. I trust you because you are seeking truth. But when you tell me that you have found the truth and you are absolutely objectively moral and you have found objective morality, I'm going to doubt you. When you
That's fine.
and that is the position that I've taken only because
Now, then there's the further question
hmm
is if we generally agree upon a set of morals,
hmm
and so far this is as close as we've gotten to what is the objective morality.
hmm
Um, if somebody violates that morality, have they objectively violated morality?
no, they've subjectively violated morality. Because if they think
So,
that they did it for a good reason, then we have to come together to find out why they broke the morality rules or uh, and subject the situation. We have to determine the situation. Somebody kicked a dog. We have determined that kicking the dog is subjectively wrong, but it was biting a child. Kick the dog. Kicking dogs is wrong, but if it's biting a child, I will kick a dog. You see
okay,
how subjectively I'm telling you I am correct. But if all you heard was I kicked a dog and you have an objective morality that kicking dogs is wrong, then you will say I'm wrong.
well, no, that's still a statement of facts and circumstances, right? If the dog is biting somebody and you kick it to get it off,
hmm
well, that's different from
So,
just kicking the dog outright. But
right.
what you've done
So,
is you change the facts of the matter,
right.
right? We make our moral
Subjectively,
judgments.
we're making a
Well,
different
no,
moral judgment. We're making a different moral judgment. Morals,
we
I
make
think,
our
are
moral judgment
subjective.
based on the facts of the matter, right?
Yes, at the bottom of the tree is physical reality.
And so, if we're making our moral judgments based on the facts of the matter, and you change the
hmm
facts, then of course the moral judgment will change. But we have this set of rules that if the facts of the matter support that you are in violation of the set of rules that we have set,
hmm
I would say that you are objectively in violation of those rules.
I think that's an incorrect statement. I mean, you're not objectively wrong. You're subjectively wrong. I I don't think that either one of us is going to move on this issue because it's not that we're disagreeing on morals, on what the morals or the ethics are. It's just this one red line right here. These are all subjective things to me. The moral that you don't kick a dog is subjective because depending on changes within the physical, you can now be okay with kicking that dog. Depending on what the physical is, you can make a metaphysical assumption and then have a moral. It's immoral to kick dogs. I agree. It is also moral to kick dogs that are biting children. You see how we go up the tree and we have a physical thing that happens, kicking a dog, or kicking a dog that's biting a child, and then we make a metaphysical determination that it is biting and harming a child, and then we have a different moral. And because that moral is changeable depending on the circumstances underneath it, it is not objective.
Well, no, that moral doesn't change depending on the circumstances. The moral is um, don't commit unprovoked aggression,
Okay,
right? So don't just kick the dog for no reason.
right. I could agree.
But there's another moral that says defend those that need defense, in which case there's a child that's being bit by a dog.
Right. And
So,
in this very clear case, it's easy to make that determination. In less clear cases, in more difficult situations of a of moral nature, sometimes there's a gray area where both people are wrong or both people are kind of right. And in those situations, again, those would be subjective. We have to determine who is correct and who is wrong, who is right and who is wrong, who is correct in their aggression or not correct in their aggression.
Well, in order to do that, in order to make that determination, we have to have something to measure it against in the first place, right?
Sure. We can measure things. You can measure subjective things against other subjective things. You can.
I think that falls on extremely shaky grounds. Um,
Of course it does. Everything's shaky. Society might
if
collapse.
if I say, um, don't throw that paperclip,
Uh-huh.
and then you throw a paperclip,
We're in the physical layer. Okay, great. And then I did it.
is
Okay.
it objectively true that you violated the command, don't throw that paperclip?
It's true that I disregarded the things that you told me, and I did the action anyway. The action is objective. The paperclip, objective. You and I, objectives. The throwing is the objective. There's very little subjective within this thing, except my choice to throw the thing against your
Well, what
wishes.
about?
Your
Well, hold
wishes
on.
exist within your head. My idea to disregard your wishes exist within my head. That puts them in the subjective realm.
What? Hold on. So
I could come up with different words for them if you want me to. Honestly,
I don't think
I
that the words you're using then have much meaning. If
they
you,
have
you
all
can,
the meaning in the
you
world, and
said
there's
it.
so much meaning that we can't wrap our tiny brains around them.
No, I mean, you. How
I
can you
think
say it's true that you violated the command?
you
But
can be subjectively true. You can be objectively true. Objectively, a rock is a rock. Objectively. I hit one rock with another rock. That's an objectively true statement. I insulted you and you felt bad. That is a subjectively true statement. Insults,
well, if both of those things happened,
uh-huh.
so if
They're
you
both true.
use an insult
Uh-huh.
and they are both true,
Uh-huh.
I think they're objectively true.
I don't think so.
Yes.
Because the insult doesn't really exist except within our brains. And then the feeling that you had is real. It's just subjectively real. The
Yeah. See, I
insult
totally
is
disagree with that
subjectively real. The
definition.
feeling that you had is subjectively real. Is a feeling less real than a rock? I would suggest that yes, a feeling is less real than a rock. It's not unreal. It doesn't not exist. Feelings exist. Thoughts exist. But they aren't within this physical box. That's all I'm saying. The, the feeling you had of insult does not exist within this physical box. Doesn't mean it's not real. It just doesn't exist within this physical box. It can definitely exist within the metaphysical box. And we can come up with an ethic of I should not insult you. And we can come up with a moral of I feel like I should not insult other people. And we can come up with an ethic of within a proper society, we don't insult people. We can, yeah.
I think that it, if we can apply the word true to it,
Mm-hmm.
that means that it would be true also for an outside observer. So, if an outside observer saw you insult me or heard you
Mm-hmm.
insult me and then
Mm-hmm.
saw my reaction to it, then that outside observer could reasonably come to the conclusion that you insulted me and
Mm-hmm.
I had a negative reaction to it.
Mm-hmm. I can accept all of those things.
And that is a true statement. I'm saying
Still a true
maybe
statement.
it's my
Fine.
problem is that when I use objectively, when I use objective, I mean it's true. It's a true thing.
Okay. I would draw a distinction between those two things. True statements can happen. You can truly insult someone, and you can truly have your feelings hurt. But I don't think you can objectively have your feelings hurt.
All right, so we have been using a different
We've
definition
been
of
using a different
objective.
definition, and
Um,
there's a reason I've come to that
so
conclusion. It's just so that we can. Why do I have this
well, all right. So
delineation?
what if I separate, I stop using objective morality and I use the true morality?
I would probably be more on board for it. We could argue on what is the true morality.
Yes, we can, and that
Okay,
is the whole purpose of philosophy and science in the first place.
sure, of course it is. But I don't think, but the people who use the word objective morality are trying to control things. They're trying to say, they're often religious people who are saying that objective morality is correct and I can prove it. And I don't think that they can. There's a
Well, I
reason
think
I'm
that
against it.
I think
Because,
that if you can say that there is a, if they're using objective in the same way that I am,
mm-hmm,
which is to say that there is a true morality out there,
mm-hmm,
or at some point we can arrive at a true morality.
mm-hmm.
Um, they are claiming to have found it, and perhaps they have not.
And I doubt them because they say they found the truth.
But again, this is something that you're able to argue with them about, and if they refuse to have the argument in the first place, then you're dealing with someone who's acting in bad faith,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, I mean, back when we believed that the sun revolved around the earth, people that that refused to consider an alternative argument, of course, they weren't acting in the greatest of scientific endeavor. They weren't acting in the greatest of faith.
The point I'm trying to get to, the direction that we need to, I think, go, is to maybe let's stop using the words subjective and objective. They're difficult words. Right and wrong, I could are more fluid, but I think that they're better as words because I mean it's wrong to kick a dog. Yeah, great, of course it is, but it's not wrong to do it for this other reason. So uh, by using right and wrong, uh, we're using our brains to interpret all of these things. We're we're going through this really quickly. Honestly, it's real. You can go through this tree very quickly. Someone's being bitten. I kicked the dog. It shouldn't be bad, and it should not be illegal to kick a dog. Don't create a law against it. We can go. You can fly through that tree. And the reason I made the tree, I can say that there are true ethics. There are ethical truths. There are aesthetic truths. You can argue them, and you can disagree about what those truths are, and that's fine. There are political truths. There are lawful truths. Someone can break the law. And I think that is a subjective statement. But if we're not going to use objective and subjective anymore, what do you propose instead? Right and wrong?
Um, True and untrue, true and false.
Okay. True and false, true and untrue. That would be uh, true does mean a little bit more uh, brain thinky. Truth exists within your head.
I don't think that's the case. I think that even if humans didn't exist and no animals existed, then it would still be true that that the Earth revolves around the sun.
With no one to measure any of those things, with no human brains,
It
it
is
would
still the
still
case
be
that that
a
happens.
physical, it would be a physical thing that is happening. But if there are no humans comprehending it, it isn't true. It is a physical process. If only physical processes existed, then there would be no true. There would be no language. There would be no word true. There would be no definition of true. I think we're just going to get back into this exact same argument, but with the word true and untrue. I'm going to
I
say
really think that
I'm going to say everything underneath that red line is true, and everything above the red line is also true and could be true. So I still draw that line there, just with different words, maybe.
Well, now you've got true on both sides of the line.
I know.
I don't think it works. This is
Um,
why I don't think this is why I didn't think that your placement of that line worked at all. I don't think I would have agreed with your placement of it at any point on the scale. When I think of truth,
hmm
I'm not giving that a um, I don't give the fact that we are capable of observing the truth um, as being necessary for the truth to exist.
Of course it has to. If there if there are no more human ears, there is no music. Um, you can have sound waves that exist within the oxygen molecules. They're physically there, but there's no music because we can't hear.
But
If there is no one to comprehend the Earth revolving around the sun, it is all within the physical. There's no mind, there's no brain, there's no intelligence, there's no nothing. There's not even any earthworm brains. Void of all life. There is no metaphysical.
I think that
There
there
is no truth.
is such thing as the truth that, as we understand it, like, and it all goes back again, like we were talking about last week a little bit about the theory of forms,
hmm
right?
I
There is,
yeah, I took a look at that.
yeah. So there is, I think, a sort of um, we're using words to give ourselves the ability to communicate properties that already exist in the world.
We're describing things.
Whether or not we are capable of describing them doesn't make them not exist. And I think the same applies to things that are true. So whether or not we are capable of observing that something is true does not make it less true
If no one observes
or
it,
untrue.
if there is no observation,
It is still true.
no, can't be.
Okay.
This is
If
Schrodinger's cat.
if
You're
there are
getting
no
towards
human
here.
beings on the planet
hmm
to observe a truth,
hmm
then I will then pose a question to you.
hmm
The Earth revolves around the sun. True or
hmm
false?
That requires a human brain, man. That question requires human brains. That requires thought. That requires definitions.
That is where
Earth
I
has a
disagree.
definition. Does Earth have a definition? Does revolve have a definition? Does sun have a definition? You are starting at the metaphysical box right there with that question.
Well, we have to use language in order to communicate.
Yes, we
And
have to
I
use language
honestly,
to communicate. I agree. In your
I think maybe
hypothetical,
that
in your
that
hypothetical,
language,
in your hypothetical, there is no such thing as true because there are no brains. You can say that it physically happens. Probably, you could probably say it physically goes around the sun. But when you asked me a question with language, and it has definitions of sun, revolution, and Earth, those things don't exist within the physical box. They exist within the metaphysical box. And if you're in the metaphysical box, you mandatorily have to have brains.
this is why I completely disagree with your chart then.
I know,
Because
because it's a
we're using words.
it is a difficult thing to comprehend. The idea that there are no brains within the universe, there is no truth. If there are no brains within the universe, I'm going to tell you specifically, if there are no brains within the universe, there is no truth.
Yeah, I think that's totally wrong.
There are physical things that exist, but if you start to measure them, if you start to determine a revolution around a star, you are adding definitions. And those definitions require brains. There is no, if there are no human brains, there is no sun, there is no revolution, there is no star, because those are all words that have definitions.
We are using words to communicate meanings for things that exist.
Yes, you and I are doing a metaphysical exercise right now.
Not really.
Yes, we
We're
are.
we're just communicating.
We're
We're
communication.
communicating meanings.
Communication exists within that metaphysical layer. All communication exists within this metaphysical layer. The sound waves and the electrons exist within the physical. But if I just gave you a bunch of random sound waves and electrons, you wouldn't be able to comprehend them because they aren't structured in a language. That language, that structure, that definition, all belongs within that metaphysical box because they
I
require
think
a
that if this is
brain.
the stance that's being taken, then there is zero foundation for any of your arguments then.
Because
I mean,
I've told you many, many times that everything is subjective. This is the conclusion that you're coming to. Yes, you are getting to my conclusion. Everything is subjective.
except
And there
that's
is
where
no
I disagree with
foundation.
you.
Yes, there is no foundation. Everything is subjective. Damn near everything is subjective. There's a very small amount of things that are physical and objective. And everything else is something that our brain either comprehends, makes up, or invents. We align these things. We put all of the things in boxes, categories, definitions. We measure the things. That's all brain stuff. That brain stuff produces subjective things. That is how I've come to this conclusion. This isn't like something I didn't think about. That language itself is an invention of the human brain. If there are no human brains, is there any language? If there are no human brains, there is no morality. If there are no brains within the universe, there is no definitions. There's no measurements. There's no uh, comprehension. So you starting at the comprehension level is fine. We can start from the comprehension level of discussion. That is an acceptable thing to do. But I'm telling you there is a layer underneath it that is the physical, and everything we do above the comprehension level is subjective.
Again, I think your idea of what is subjective and objective or rather, your idea of subjectivity is far too broad.
It is
Um,
very broad. I agree. That's why I think that everything is broad. I mean, I'm describing literally every single thing that's ever been invented by the human brain. It's a very broad subject. And I think it's broad because we can change it. We can make it whatever we want. The human brain can invent measurements for time, or it can invent measurements like inches or centimeters, and those centimeters disagree with the inches. That is a subjective thing, don't you think? If we came
um,
across a completely new alien species, would they use inches, centimeters, and hours? No. They'd have
no, but
created
they
their
still would.
own. Subjective. That sounds subjective to me, doesn't it?
Well, they would still recognize, I think, in whatever language that they speak,
Mm-hmm.
um, certain truths. So they would still be capable of recognizing that the Earth revolves around the sun,
Mm-hmm.
even though
And
they might call it Blarf revolves
mm-hmm.
around Gorm.
I agree.
You know, but
Recognize,
the
recognize. You said the word recognize. What do you need
but
to do
well, the
recognition?
fact is that in order for both of us, regardless of what language we're using, to recognize that this is happening,
Mm-hmm.
means that the happening itself is true.
The happening itself is happening.
Yes.
You can't recognize a truth without a brain, without a cognition, without some
Well, I'm
sort
saying that
of...
truth does not need to be recognized before it can be
Of course it
true.
does.
No.
It has to be, or else it doesn't exist. Anything that
If the
isn't...
tree falls in the woods and no one was
Mhm.
around to see it or hear it, did the tree fall in the woods?
How would you know? You have removed all human cognition from the situation. The word tree has a
Yeah, I
definition
have.
that your human brain comprehends. You have now made it, this tree, within my brain, and I'm imagining the tree falling in the woods. So in my imagination, a tree has fallen in the woods. But I can't do
Well,
that
the
without
answer
a
is
human
yes.
brain.
If the tree falls in the woods, no one's around to see or hear it, the tree still fell in the woods. The action took place.
The action
That
took
is a true
place.
statement that the tree
Fine.
fell in the woods.
It doesn't become true until a human comprehends it.
False.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, we're in Schrodinger's cat area, is what we're at right now. Things that aren't comprehended can still happen, but until we comprehend them happening, until a human brain unfolds the waveform, uh, it has, it's not true. It can't be, because truth requires comprehension. Truth requires an intelligent person to comprehend it. It requires some sort of uh, brain function to recognize that it is true. If it isn't recognized as truth, then it isn't truth.
I think that
There,
tying truth to the conscious experience is um, incorrect.
I think that what I would use to, how I would describe the thing that you are mentioning, this tree that no one comprehends, is a physical. It's in the physical layer. The tree falling is in this physical layer. The tree fell over. It caused some ripples within the oxygen molecules, and that, if a person were around to hear it, would have called a noise. But because no one was there, physically, it happened. Nature, elements, materials. There are physical things happening outside of human comprehension right now. There are physical things happening on Alpha Centauri that a human is not paying attention to.
And so, is it true that they're happening or not?
They're physically happening. I wouldn't say it's true until a person comprehends it, until a person sees it, understands, or doesn't even understand it, but just sees it. Or once you can't be true until you have entered a human brain. You can be physical before entering human brains, but you can't be true. Keep it with the stars. There is a sunspot on Alpha Centauri. I never see it, never comprehend it, nobody ever looks at it. It happened, it was a physical thing, but until we start looking for evidence of it happening, until we look at it and comprehend it, it wasn't true. When you find evidence of that tree that has fallen, when you find evidence of that sunspot on Alpha Centauri, it becomes true.
Well, I think maybe we table this one until next week and we can have a conversation on what is and what is not truth and whether or not.
Oh, hi. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button, press the subscribe button. Uh, if you want to tell me how right I am, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to tell me how wrong I am, leave a comment too. That's good. Um, this is just kind of a hobby for me, so I appreciate you coming by, giving it a watch, and pressing the YouTube buttons. Thanks.